So yes, it's there, so anyone who wants to read it can see it. But to
Yes.
continue on with some methodology, so within the steering committee, Todd and Bob, I guess, had hope to establish some task groups and further identify local resources, since you guys are a wealth of knowledge, and hopefully try to include local government and more local knowledge on that end as well. And throughout the methodology, incorporating public comment meetings, charrettes, and different presentations. And then the final product, the task plan, will provide outreach and a communication plan, including methods, media, different protocols of communication, and specific methods of communication can be, creative to any degree that we see fit. But this will all help us to inform the overall master plan towards the end of the process.
And Olivia, much of this has been in place, although I must say there's been a very substantial hiatus over the last, frankly, 12 months.
Right. Yeah, it's been tough the past few years, but hopefully we can get it done. So I kind of put together a matrix of different directions that we could take public engagement. So at the top, we have the master plan steering committee and Heather and I working collectively with you guys. And I wanted to identify the most important players in town and different subgroups, so we could reach out to different niche communities and maybe people that don't necessarily always have a say in public engagement or government issues, because the master plan is such an all-encompassing endeavor. So thinking about schools, Bob, you had mentioned that DECA is very impressive in the local school system, maybe engaging teachers and trying to gauge student interest and see if, some of the youth in town might be interested in forming a subgroup. NHS, they might always need volunteer hours, so that could be something that might be applicable for them. And sports teams, Todd and Bob mentioned that you guys have a really big sports presence in the town, and it's one of the most popular activities, so that could be very helpful to put flyers, promote events, things like that. And some other locations, I thought, it's fall, people really try to embrace the rural nature of towns during this time of year. So it might be nice to see if local farms would want to work with us in promoting or hosting events. Again, with wineries, any small businesses where we could post flyers or QR codes. The public library is always a good place to post display boards and infographics. You could have a more long-term display up there, so as people come and go, they can take their time to read through things. And then embracing the town common and center area, which is probably frequently trafficked. And then moving on to social media, there's a bunch of opportunities for social media and many different ways that we can incorporate that here. One is town pages, where we can post updates, and then Conveo, which is a site that I will walk through with you guys after and give you a quick demo. This is just a way to post updates and gain community feedback in a more controlled environment. There's also Facebook groups, and then Heather and I thought it might be fun to do a short video either online on the site or with Bolton Access TV, kind of introduce the town planner, since Todd, I know you're new, depending if you're comfortable with it, but it could
That's
be
fine.
fun, and uh, do a little introduction about the master plan process and what that might look like, and then using the local paper. Continuing on, there's local stakeholders and influential folks in the town who have small businesses. I thought it might be helpful to also identify some more uh, standalone neighborhoods where we could distribute mailers or something of that nature, and then appeal to relevant local committees, and of the same nature, community organizations like churches, the Bolton Historical Society, the Bolton Seniors, who might have been in the town for a while and have a wealth of knowledge about what the best approach would be to go about this project and even engage in further community outreach. And I spoke with Bob, and he has a really huge role in the the parks in Bolton, and so engaging the Bolton Conservation Trust and Trails Committee is a really great way to embrace people who love the green space in town. And we thought that it would be nice to put up maybe QR codes or some more infographics on trailheads that people frequent. And then some upcoming events that might be beneficial to have a presence at are the Bolton Orchards Fall Fest. There's a Halloween parade. I think that's an annual event that you guys have. Election Day, I know that's a big day, and if people want to, I don't know if it's necessarily allowed, but if we could put like a board or an infographic letting people know that this is something that's happening in town, that might be a big event to have a presence at. And then I saw that there's a school band concert also on the 26th, and those were always big in my town. So might be the same in Bolton.
Good.
And
And
then,
one thing we
yeah,
did not get into or have not gotten into in the past is the use of QR codes.
yes.
Um, the Trails Committee has been extremely successful with that, putting up
Hmm.
QR codes in a bunch of places, not the least of which is the trailheads. And so all of their maps, historical and environmental information, is accessible through those QR codes, and we're obviously very willing to use them, and it gets them where they need to get without any effort on their part.
Yeah, definitely. They're a great resource. And so kind of embracing the timeline that you guys had put together so thoughtfully, I kind of broke it down into the timeline that we produced for our scope of services. So at a glance, kind of a 2-year timeline could be conducted in 2 phases. And so some of these major tasks are broken up into either phase 1 or also being completed through phase 1 and 2 because they're more long-term goals and plans throughout the process. And so task 1, we're looking at data review and existing conditions analysis and general project kickoff, which is where we're kind of approaching now. Task 2 is developing more of the master plan components, the data compilation, and some first draft production. Task 3 is developing an implementation plan, which is a big endeavor in itself. And task 4 would be public outreach and engagement. So this is something that obviously we would be starting soon and continuing throughout the process. Defining the community-based vision, engaging in steering committee and planning board meetings, and hosting public forums and using that site Conveo that I mentioned to gain feedback from the community. And task 5 would be the final master plan deliverable, some more project coordination, and final GIS mapping. So that was just a kind of general sense of the direction that we could take this. It's quite flexible in the sense of community outreach because you guys have so many opportunities and ways that we could go. So I'm happy to distribute this to you guys as well, and any feedback would be helpful.
Olivia, can you go
Yeah,
back to that, to your
this one.
timetable?
Yeah.
Um, I would expect that a substantial part of task 4 you would want to move forward. Certainly trying to define community-based vision
Right. And
before you get into the details of an implementation plan. And the same thing with respect to um, feedback and public outreach. You know, that's the sort of thing we had talked about. Um, and we did in the very beginning,
yeah.
reached out and provided information on what a master plan was, an idea of how it is put together, what the components are, what the legislative basis for it is, and that sort of thing. So I think the
Right.
outreach and engagement needs to be a very early part of this.
Yes,
And
and it
it's
will
not that we
be.
haven't done
Yeah.
any, we've done a lot, but it's we've lost momentum.
Yeah, I should have specified it's not necessarily a linear
Right.
timeline, even though it appears to be laid out that way. Um, it's kind of as it says, like phase 1 and phase 2, these kind of ebb and flow depending on different elements of the plan and different phases of community outreach. So although it says task 4, has public outreach and engagement, that will also exist in phase one. So a lot of these elements exist amongst each other, if that makes
Okay, so
sense.
these, and these ought to be characterized more as scopes of work
Yes,
as they
definitely.
are defined, rather than
Yes.
suggest that they're sequential.
Right. Yes.
And these are very much parallel efforts, I would say.
Yeah, many of them are.
Hmm.
I do
Although the,
want, I also want to speak up a little bit about the timeline too, because within, the first year of the scope, we had proposed that we would develop drafts of each chapter of the master plan. And then moving forward, that would be further refined. So there is a huge public outreach and engagement up front in the first year in terms of really figuring out the vision and, where actions are going to be recommended in the different chapters related to the different elements of the plan. Year two is more of the, here's what we received for feedback, here are the recommendations we came up with, that kind of outreach of now you're reacting to what we're putting in there, and then we're refining that final draft based upon then making everybody aware of what's in this plan fully. And with that, I do think we're going to be handling the different elements of the plan at different points in time. So starting off, we may tackle, like, the demographics isn't an easier one to tackle up front, because that's a lot of just the existing information that's out there. But like land use and housing and economic development are all kind of interrelated in a way. So we're going to be grouping the elements together in ways that I think make the most sense in terms of writing the actual document. So I do want to be kind of, explicit with how we're going to approach writing the different elements. I think some of the elements related to the schools and municipal services and facilities, water and sewer, that they're a little more, they're going to require a lot more coordination with, the schools or the facilities, like all of those kinds of interactions where there's going to need to be, interviews and that kind of stuff, I think are going to be in the latter months of year one versus upfront in year one, just in terms of being able to make that progress to write those chapters. So I do want everybody to understand, like, the draft is not going to be written all at once altogether. We're going to be tackling pieces and crossing, certain sections off as we go to present one full draft toward the end of year one.
Makes sense.
you go ahead. I'm sorry, Tom.
No, all I was mentioning is that that work process makes sense. All of these are done as a collection of chapters rather than one monolithic document. And it's important to keep that in mind, that we're going to be nibbling away and chipping away at it rather than just having one massive omnibus document that's released all at once. It doesn't quite work like that.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, certainly we've been wrestling with is you can address specific elements of the master plan individually, but there is inevitably a very significant interrelationship among them, and in some cases, an overarching theme. And one of the ones that's certainly critically important, and we've seen with the environmental work that's been done to date with Bolton and the whole Apple country, as well as Clinton and Denver, Devens and Harvard, is making sure that we take into consideration the breadth and depth of climate change,
Agreed.
which is pretty significant, and particularly in a town that still has a substantial amount of agriculture in it. That's really important, and there is an impact. I mean, as we've seen in previous studies, the farmers will tell you, and boy, they sure will tell you this year.
Right.
So my whole point there is, we can look at the breakdown of the overall plan into its elements, but at the same time, keep in mind that there is a lot of crosstalk among those elements.
So I can go ahead and show you guys a little bit of Conveo. I showed this to Bob and Todd just the other day. But if there aren't any other questions, I can send a copy of this to you guys and you can distribute it.
I guess I'd like to raise a
Oh,
question,
yeah.
a comment. It's Ken. If I just listen to what you've described here, we're basically starting over again. And I don't know whether that's the intent or not, but a great deal, in my opinion, at least, a great deal of work has been done over the last 2 or 3 years by this group. And I would hope that that gets factored into what you do. That, I mean, taking it as an example, the work that Penny and her group has done in municipal services involved interviewing all of the people, taking inventories and things of that sort. And I guess I would hope that you would build on all of that rather than essentially start all over again.
Yep,
Yeah,
absolutely.
But I get, I mean, I expected that was your answer, but I think that it would, from a public relations point of view, it would be good if it didn't appear to the public that it was all starting over again, but that it was building on what was there, and that be reflected some way or other in the timeline.
I think if you give Olivia a chance to run through Conveo and what it can offer, you'll see that we are building off of what has been done in the past, and we will be building off of what's been done in the past. And I think Conveo is a really good tool to really give an opportunity for more interactive, more of an interactive component rather than just looking at information on a website or anything like that. What we want to do is create different infographics for the various sections of the master plan that'll initially be on this graphic, and that will take into consideration all the work that's been done to date, with some of the goals and some of the recommendations, and you know, help to solidify the direction of where items are being put into the actual implementation matrix and the timeline for that.
Okay, well, that's, so go ahead with that then. I just wanted to, that
Yes.
was an observation that I had. That's
Yes,
all. So by all means, go
Can
ahead
you-
with that next part.
Yes, Ken,
Heather,
giving them access to the files that we have on record, so they'll have access to all the information that has been kind of amalgamated to date. So they'll be able to take all the work that's been done and use what they can in the next iteration of this. So it'll be a build upon rather than a completely new effort.
Yeah, and what's currently in Dropbox, again, broken out by the elements of the master plan, is a very rich resources, a very rich resource problem. Not necessarily consistently. Some tasks have moved ahead significantly more than others, but some of the analysis has gone beyond simple evaluation of current and existing conditions to what are the options, what are the implications of those options, what is other towns and organizations done in this regard. But I think it'd be well worth roaming through Dropbox and taking a look at that. It's, it's pretty carefully structured to do exactly that.
Yeah, I see. Is it Chia? Do you have a question?
It's Kia.
Kia, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. I think that we should not be afraid to find some language that does describe where we are. Whether we say we are rebooting or relaunching ourselves, because I think we should take the opportunity to blame COVID, to blame, frequent staff changes in the planning office. I think there are people in town who have sort of were contacted and got excited and lost interest. or people who've sort of brushed us aside because they never hear, because our progress looks to them to be very slow. So, if we want to re-engage people who were sort of listening as of 2 or 3 years ago, I think we need to find language that does give us, it gives a nod to what we've done. But I don't have any problem with acting like we are rebooting, that we are starting, especially with the public outreach and the forums or the interaction with people. Now that we can meet people face to face, I think that will be a huge, huge boost to this whole process. And so, I don't want to downgrade what people have done, but I don't think we should hang our hats on it, because I think a lot of people in the general public don't really think we've done much at all, which is okay with me, because I just tell people, well, COVID, we can't really move ahead. And it is significant that we have financial backing from the town now, which is why we have, Heather and Olivia and people like this. So I don't have any problem sort of flaunting that.
I agree with that. I think that's a savvier approach to messaging the relaunch of the whole effort. I think that's a good idea.
Well, I mean, we're redeveloping momentum in a structure that now has input from professional consultants and a very, very good platform on which to develop community engagement both ways. So, and I don't want to downplay the work that has been done, but one of the real problems with that work is that we started out really providing publicity to what the various groups are coming up with, and then that basically died. So we really haven't maintained the momentum of public engagement. So we're re-upping it, we're rebooting it, whatever you want to call it. But at the same time, not ignoring a significant amount of effort that came before. And I think it's perfectly legitimate to talk about COVID. It's not only perfectly legitimate, it's true. Running for 2.5 years in 2D, looking at a monitor all the time is not the way to engage within the group and outside of the group.
Agreed.
Definitely.
So, Conveo.
Yeah, we're ready to
Sorry.
see it. Let me pull this up. Let's see. New share. Do this one. Okay, so Conveo. Conveo is a really neat website that allows you to make your own page in a very simple, digestible, accessible way. And what Conveo is meant for is for engagement. There's many different elements that you are allowed to, as an administrator of the site, create different engagement tools for the community to use. So one of the examples that I pulled up is just a general master plan example that Conveo packages to show you some of the tools that you can include in your master plan. So what they've done is they have uploaded their master plan as a PDF. So there's this very long, master plans are big, all-encompassing documents, and sometimes that can be overwhelming to someone that maybe doesn't know what a master plan is. So I'll just show you some of the tools that they have set up already. So for example, they have a little site of a website. It takes you to a link for the consultants that put it together. So for example, we could do something like that for us if people are wondering, oh, who did this? They also have a little tool you can click on to look at their poster boards. It's not active anymore, but it's just an example. It'll take you to another site to show you what this little widget shows you. Up here, you can add a link for somebody to fill out a survey. Introduction to the park. So they've included a little YouTube video. It pops up right in the screen. And like I mentioned, it would be really neat to do an introduction to Todd as the new town planner, something engaging and exciting for them to see on here. Over here, they have a pledge your support, a table of contents, contacts, and ArcGIS Online. So this is a tool where it pulls a map up and it could show you the precise location of where the project is happening. So that's a neat tool too. All of these little yellow dots are comments that people have left. So somebody commented, I wish there were some people in this picture. This park has so much to offer for residents. And someone thumbs it up or thumbs it down. Someone says, I agree. And you can view all of the responses here. You can hide it. Or if you want to see all of the comments that are left, you can scroll through most recent, most replied. So anonymous comments are left, or people can make accounts, and this gives them the ability to leave contact information or their name if the administrator has any further information that they want to distribute. So anyone can comment on here. And as an administrator, you have the ability to require somebody to make an account to leave a comment. So that kind of vets whoever is using the site and leaves some form of accountability for commenting. So that's an example of how commenting works. And one really neat tool about this is if you have a huge document with all of these comments, you can export it into an Excel file. And that's a really neat way to just sort all of this data in a precise way and produce documents and reports in that way. And there's also just a table of contents. So if someone's really interested in let's say, oh, I want to see the data and analytics, it'll take you right to that section, and you can see what comments people leave, any other information in that section that you're interested in. So another example, this one is pretty bare bones. It's just the master plan, but it has the same capabilities set up in the last one that I showed you. Again, you can see commenting, and they have another little navigation tool for people who might just be interested in one certain topic. This is an example of a concept board. So one neat thing I wanted to show you about this was you can pull up Explore in Street View. So if there's a certain place in town that you're really looking for feedback on, you could pull up a Google Maps link and have it take them there, and someone can say, oh, I know exactly where this is, and here are my thoughts about the proposed plan. You can add a video, you can add a discussion prompt. So for example, they have a little video here explaining what they're looking for feedback on. People can watch the video, leave your comment, leave your name, your email for feedback. So it really has a lot of opportunity for you to pick the different types of engagement that you want people to participate in. Next is just kind of a nice way that you can organize your engagement. So for example, they have different parts of the plan broken up, and this allows the user to navigate to where they're looking to go. They have it broken down into 6 more elements down here, some nice pictures. They have a mobile friendly link and an FAQ link. So for example, if you guys wanted to do a page on what is a master plan, if someone's looking to learn more about your initiative, they can look at a page with a very packaged, nice, simple explanation of what a master plan is, why you're doing the master plan, and what it means for the community. You can also put the most recent master plan on the site. So for example, this is a site that I have worked on. I'm currently working on for the town of Dracut. They're doing a zoning bylaw update. So we have, you know, a lot of times zoning is not the most exciting thing in the world. So we have
Speak
a
for yourself.
little Todd would like to argue. So we have a little about link, learn about getting involved in the planning process. We have resources and a contact. But one thing that I think would be helpful, as I mentioned, was informing people on what a master plan is. So we have a little explanation on what zoning bylaw review is, and people can read up on that. This is a general summary. We have some resources, and for Conveo, you can make these tabs anything that you want. It really gives you a lot of flexibility. So if you guys wanted to do a little homepage, maybe a history of Dracut for people that might be new to the town, you could do the most recent master plan. You could have contact, you could do a survey. There's really any direction of engagement that you want to go in. So we just have a general question or comment forum. And then if we go down to the actual document itself, we have it updated in here. And so for myself and the members of the town that are working on this project with me, we can see who leaves comments and what these are relevant to and how we should proceed with them in the future. So it's a really nice, neat packaged way to kind of go about getting community feedback. And to Ken's note before about prior community engagement that's been done, I think that would be a great thing to include on your Conveo site. Have a page dedicated to past initiatives for community engagement. You could package up past reports, really nicely and have it simple and get feedback even on that end as well. Because some people might be like, oh, well, I didn't know that this was happening, or I wasn't here when this outreach happened. Well, now they have an opportunity to have a say and have a voice in the process and be a part of the master plan project in itself. So that's kind of Conveo. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I think it would be useful to have a native guide.
Yeah.
Take you through what has been done already. I'm listening to things like a Bolton TV presentation of the town planner and the steering committee. Well, they did an absolutely wonderful job on putting together an introduction to the steering committee and why they're on it. That is available. We can dig that up. Put out articles on what and why a master plan and what the basis of it is. And all of that has been written up. And I think it would be, and it's very much focused on Bolton, our time, our place, and where we are certainly in the development of the town. Would be worthwhile taking a look at that as well. There are a substantial number of things that you've mentioned that are in place but not accessible, have been published in the past but are not available now. I think it'd be very well worthwhile going through them.
Definitely. And Conveo is nice with accessibility measures. So anything that you type into the website, if somebody has audio or visual impairment, they can have the website read anything to them that's on
Oh,
it.
really?
So that's
Oh,
a really nice feature that it offers.
Good. And I guess one of the great challenges is getting people to look at Conveo.
Right. And so that's where QR codes could come in. You could make a QR code for the site and put it around town. You could put a link to the Conveo page on the town website. You can send the link to anyone. It's a really easy way to just send a massive information to different groups, different business owners, people in town that would be interested in it.
One thing I think I like most about this is that it gives us one easy package that we can then share this with anyone. So with whomever we share this to, it really becomes a one-stop shop for them to satisfy all of their questions in one place, which is
Right.
very helpful in terms of messaging.
Definitely. And something else that I think would be really nice too is maybe like a contact us, or instead get involved and have somebody put their name and maybe ask what topic are you most interested in and provide a few options or something if you're looking for creating a subgroup or hosting a community meeting about a very specific topic or something of that end.
And that's critical as well. The number of people that come along and say, well, I'd like to help out. And the response is, well, thank you very much, as opposed to, what are you interested in? What do we have that might interest you? And what is your experience and expertise in a particular area?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But we somehow have difficulty getting to that in any of the organizations in town, frankly.
Mm.
The other thing I think would be very good to look at, not as convenient, certainly as this, but could be linked very nicely, if not the content transferred into Conveo, is the Master Plan Steering Committee website on the town website, which has a great deal of information on it that could be used as the basis if it needs to be modified, or if it simply needs to be transcribed over. It might very well be useful.
Yeah, we could definitely look at that, and you know, if we want to have both exist in coexistence, we could definitely cater it to that direction.
You
But
could link them to each other
yeah,
and
you
have them
could
woven together.
put a
Yeah,
link.
the town website, with the exception of submitting questions, is not interactive.
Sure.
So it would be a static repository that could be linked from Conveo in particular areas.
Definitely. Anyone else?
Can I say something real quick? First, I wanted to show my face and just say hi and welcome
Hi.
Todd and welcome Olivia. And I actually am a human being. I just had a car full of kids that none of you needed to see. But I'm really happy to be in this meeting. I'm really excited about this system as like a means of connecting more of the public. A couple of things that stand right out to me. I think people that are just have kids and need to access that information late night, or every day is a different day. It gives them a place to at least go to start. And Bob, to what you were saying about linking the master plan website that's on the town website right now, I think that's a great idea, and to just make sure that it's static, whereas this is more interactive, so that there's clarification, so people don't get confused about how they don't get stuck in one place or the other. I think just however the two get meshed, and Heather and Olivia, you guys will work your magic with this, to make sure that it's clear that this is kind of informational, or and then this new what did you call it, Conveo system, is if you want to voice or an action, that's where you go for that. So
Yeah,
that's it.
That's a simpler message to convey to folks, I think. Pun not intended with the whole Conveo thing.
I was waiting for it.
Yeah, it's gonna happen. I don't even have a kid yet, and dad jokes are everywhere. But I think that's a very easy message to portray over to other people. I think that's as long as we have that kind of commonly understood with folks that are going to be digesting this information, I think that's a great way forward. I think Conveo here will serve as a great tool.
And I think we need to figure out how we're going to handle the town website, whether we want to simply direct people to Conveo and then Conveo links to whatever they're looking for, which makes it a one-stop shop, so that they don't get confused by, there are multiple repositories here. And if I have to interact, I've got to use Conveo. And if I want to go find static information, I've got to go to the town website, which is highly structured, but again, not interactive.
Sorry.
You almost want to what?
Sorry. well, much like I'm thinking a lot of like our planning board and our conservation, you've got the list of the members, you've got the contact information, and then you send them to links that are more of the guts of what we do. So Conveo would be one of the guts of what we do, maybe, or the place to send from the town website.
Yeah,
I think it would be worthwhile taking a careful look at the town website, what's on that, taking a look at what information, and it's a very different type of information, is available in Dropbox, and then start thinking about how those connections get made in a way that doesn't confuse people.
Yeah, I think that's a very important thing to keep in mind, because if we have this kind of binary system where there's two different sites, one requires signing up if you want to comment on something, one does not. If we can have it pared down and streamlined in such a way where it's more easily understood and digestible to average folks, I think that would go a long way.
As well as simplifying it with graphics as much as anything else. I think that's going to be critical.
Mhm.
Yeah. Agreed.
And Kia is a past master of it. And a present master, I'm sorry.
And can we assume that BSC basically is the operator of Conveo?
Yes,
Yes, but anyone can be, so the way that it works is that there are two administrators, so I presume that would be Heather and I, but I also could give Todd or Bob or any of you guys the ability to make an account and log in and maybe like view the comments to a deeper level than just as a user of the website would.
Yeah.
So there are those elements that allow you guys to have a part in it as well if you wanted that.
Yeah, and I would also add, I think requiring folks to register does give some semblance of accountability to some of the comments that are being made. Because if we leave it a little bit too loosey goosey with everything, we're bound to have a lot of messy comments and things that aren't exactly helpful. So I think that serves as a bit of a gatekeeping measure. That's
Yeah.
the most polite way I think I could put it. I think
yeah,
Right.
the Facebook syndrome.
exactly, and that's the last
Trolls
thing.
don't live only under bridges.
Exactly, we don't need keyboard warriors everywhere. We really don't. That doesn't help anything.
But I think
Yeah.
one of the early actions in this, in terms of collaborative action, is to walk through what information is available on the town website, what information is available in Dropbox, and then think very seriously about the communication linkage and how Conveo needs to be linked and what its role is in all of this as being a one-stop shop. And
Yeah.
and how does it link to the various departments in that little department store?
Olivia and do you guys have access to the Dropbox? Do you need credentials to get into that? Do you have
They do now.
I saw it popped up in my email.
Very good. Thank
Yes.
you, good sir. Thank you.
I haven't opened it yet, but I will let you know if I
Okay.
need help with that.
Heather, Todd, and Olivia all now have access to Dropbox.
Yes, indeed.
So I guess the next steps are for certainly Olivia, Heather, Todd, and me, and others as are interested and involved, to go understand a little bit more about how this is all going to fit together. And is it premature to say that Heather and Olivia, you could get back to us in our next monthly meeting in October and present how you see, having done the research, how you see this all coming together?
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
Is that, that's step one in this whole thing, providing information, getting public engagement in a two-way street.
Sure. Should we set a date for October's MPSC meeting?
Yeah, fourth Thursday.
The 20th. No, 27th,
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah.
27th.
Very good.
Okay, so that's a pretty serious agenda item for the next meeting. And then I think in parallel with starting to put together the overall draft outline and so forth, if the two of you can get back with Todd to determine where you see individual members of both the steering committee, and you do have a list of task group members, can work in the initial portions of this. And then I think it's important to have a conversation with them about how they feel about doing this, depending on their availability, their expertise, and after 2.5 years of boring monthly meetings, how they feel about doing it.
Sure. it's to be expected that we'll experience some degree of attrition, but it's until we reach out, there's no way to know quite yet.
Right. Okay, that's all I have. Anybody else?
I
Covers the
think we've all
agenda.
covered, I think we well covered everything that I had in my top triage of items.
Heather, Olivia, thank you very much.
Do you want a motion to adjourn?
I do.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
And do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any other position? Don't say it. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you guys so
night.
much.
Thank
Aye.
you, everyone. Have a great night. Enjoy the
Hey,
weekend.
Todd,
Nice
Yes.
meeting you, Todd.
should
Say
I
again?
should I
Nice
send
meeting
you?
you.
Oh, likewise. Can't wait till I can meet you for real, but we'll take what we can get.